In this class, we're going to discuss one of the great tragedies of the Jewish people. It wasn't in terms of loss in life, but in terms of emunah. It affected emunah for our belief system for at least 100 years after it occurred, and perhaps even reverberates. It means that it echoes down to this day. But first, I'm going to show you a short video of which dramatizes somewhat the issue, the person we're going to speak about tonight, Shabtai Tzvi.
The people who created modern science and modern philosophy, there was an interest in Kabbalah.
Meanwhile, Kabbalah was also being studied by two men who would unknowingly spark one of the greatest catastrophes in Kabbalah's history. Shabbatai Zvi was born in what is now Izmir, Turkey in 1626. As a young man, Zvi suffered from recurring nightmares about demonic attacks and turned to the Zohar for answers.
Shabtai Tzvi was apparently a very gifted but very troubled young man who had reached a crisis by the age of 40.
Scholars now believe Zvi experienced alternating states of deep depression and manic euphoria. The climax came when he staged a mock marriage between himself and a Torah scroll.
It was the nature of his affliction to periodically violate the commandments publicly and be thrown out of a community on a wave of scandal.
Banished by several Jewish communities in the Ottoman Empire, Zvi fled to Jerusalem, where he wandered through the streets reciting Kabbalistic chants. In 1665, Zvi met Nathan of Gaza, a young man studying Kabbalah. The two spent several weeks together traveling through what is now Israel. In time, Nathan became convinced that Zvi was the Messiah. Nathan proclaimed that the Messiah had appeared. The good news traveled from synagogue to synagogue in the Ottoman Empire and then in Europe. By 1666, the entire Jewish world was captivated by the coming of the Messiah.
Shabtai Tzvi was a manic depressive, but a very charismatic manic depressive, and a lot of people gathered around him. Other people felt that the time was ripe. In fact, this might be what we've been waiting for.
In early 1666, Ottoman soldiers arrested Zvi and brought him to the Sultan's palace in what is now Turkey. The Sultan sentenced Zvi to death for creating a public frenzy.
The Turkish Sultan gave him an offer you can't refuse, namely convert to Islam or I'll cut your head off, because if you are the Messiah and I cut your head off, you'll be able to put it back.
Now, if Shabtai Tzvi had been willing to have been martyred, this might have created another phenomenon such as Jesus. Here's the Messiah dying for his faith. But Shabtai Tzvi took the easy way out and converted to Islam.
When Zvi emerged from the palace a Muslim, a handful of supporters followed his example and converted to Islam. But the vast majority of Jews were outraged. Jews accused Kabbalists of heresy and blamed Kabbalah for leading them astray.
I would say that one of the major effects he had.
Now that you've seen the video, excuse me, let's talk about Shabtai Tzvi in some depth. By the way, I hope you took notes on the video because they're important. The Shabtai Tzvi was a person who turned over the entire Jewish world from North Africa to Eastern Europe to Western Europe to where to the extent there were Jews there, and even beyond that in the Middle East, the Sephardic countries. He came along at a time when the Chmielnicki massacres were still fresh in the minds of the Jewish people. And he came also in a year which was, for Christian mystics, had some significance. The number 666 is one of the mystical numbers in the Christian Bible. And therefore, 1666 was a year which was anticipation of something miraculous happening, good or bad, in the world. So this is a time when the Jews were desperate for some sort of salvation after the devastation which had been wrought in the previous years. And along came this fellow Shabtai Tzvi. And Shabtai Tzvi was a person who obviously learned a lot of Kabbalah. And he knew Kabbalistic concepts backwards and forwards. And he knew precisely where to insert himself into the Kabbalistic scheme of things as the Mashiach who comes at the end of time in order to redeem the Jewish people, and also in order to reform, reform, to change the Jewish religion. And Shabtai Tzvi is famous for having married a Sefer Torah. He's famous for taking the bracha, which is matir asurim, which we say in the morning, which means to release the prisoners. Hashem releases us from being imprisoned in bed, and changing it to matir isurim. Hashem permits the things which are prohibited, things which are not permitted during the course of history. After Mashiach comes, will become permitted. And this led him to all sorts of averos, which he did, claiming that Mashiach, since Mashiach came, mitzvahs no longer applied in the same way they once did. He also, thus, he also stopped fasting on Tisha B'Av. He made a simcha on Tisha B'Av, since obviously if Mashiach was here, there was no reason to fast anymore. This went on for quite some time, over the course of the year, as he traveled around with his PR man, Nathan of Gaza. It's interesting to even think now that there were Jews who lived in Gaza for hundreds of, or even thousands of years. So Nathan did come from the Gaza today, where we have so many enemies of Hamas trying to kill Jews and destroy the state of Israel. So he was a mystic as well. They were both went into trances and meditative states where they seemed to be out of this world and in olamos al-yonim, in the higher realms. And this was pretty impressive, obviously, to people who saw it. And many Rabbanim, many Rabbanim, perhaps the majority of Rabbanim, were convinced that these people are holy people. Their Kabbalistic knowledge was amazing, and the mysterious, mystical things which they did seemed to be legitimate to the people who witnessed them. And they were both very smart, and they were able to hoodwink, to deceive much of the Jewish world. Now, what happened was, of course, that, as you saw in the video, that when they came to Constantinople, now called Istanbul, and met the Sultan gave him the choice of death or conversion, and he chose conversion. But that is not the end of the story of Shabtai Tzvi. Shabtai Tzvi converted, and he died in isolation, but Nathan of Gaza continued to take his version of Kabbalah, which was a mixture of the Sabbatean, as they call it, Kabbalah, which focused on Mashiach, and focused specifically on Shabtai Tzvi as Mashiach, but if not him, somebody else, and all the things which happened in the Messianic age, which will be different than today. And he kept spreading this around the world, and until he died in 1680. And Shabtai Tzvi's influence lasted a long time after his own conversion and death. For many years, there were students and students of students of Shabtai Tzvi who thought that he was really the Mashiach, and that the going through the conversion process was only something which he had to do in order to uplift more sparks. Remember, he spoke about Menashe ben Israel and uplifting sparks. So somebody like Shabtai Tzvi was so holy they could go into the depths of Tumah and bring up sparks of Kedusha from there. And therefore, in the 1700s, there was a tremendous dispute in Europe between the greatest Rabbanim, on the one side was a person named Rabbi Yaakov Emden. Not sure that's spelled in a way which is clear. Rabbi Yaakov Emden, 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 Yaakov Emden. And on the other side was Rabbi Yonason Eybeschütz. It's spelled kind of strange, but Rabbi Yonason, Yonoson, Eybeschütz. Eybeschütz in Hebrew. Eyebeschutz. And their machlokas was that Rabbi Yaakov Emden accused Rabbi Yonason Eybeschütz of being a Sabbatean. Now, there was basis for the accusation. Rabbi Yonason Eybeschütz learnt by a known Sabbatean. Rabbi Yonason Eybeschütz's son was a known Sabbatean. And Rabbi Yaakov Emden claimed that they were amulets. Amulets in Hebrew are called kameos. Kameos are kuf mem yud ayin vav sof, are little pieces of parchment which Kabbalists write letters on, random letters, names of God. They claim they know what they're doing. Probably most have no clue what they're doing. And having this amulet is supposed to, this kamea is supposed to protect you from the evil eye, to protect you from sickness, to get you a shidduch. They're multi-purpose. In the time of the last great plague of 1918, the Spanish flu, where people sold amulets in order to ward off the flu. And today, you can go to Amazon and buy an amulet against the coronavirus. Not so expensive. You're just going to go look for kameas or amulets on Amazon, and you will find them for sale. I doubt that they have any significance whatsoever, and they're probably just fake. Actually, no matter what, they're fake. But Rabbi Yonason Eybeschütz was supposed to have been amulets, kameos, which had reference to Shabtai Tzvi's form of Kabbalah, which again had to do with the Mashiach and Mashiach's role, which was dominant in Sabbatean Kabbalah, not in other systems. Now, you might think, well, come on, how could they still be falling for Shabtai Tzvi all these years later? They were. Across Europe, there are still many Rabbanim who were loyal to Shabtai Tzvi and were loyal to his ideas. And therefore, this was a tremendous battle. And it really caused a tremendous chilul Hashem, both among the Jews and the non-Jews. Because Rabbi Yaakov Emden was printing books. He made himself a special printing press in his house to print books and pamphlets against Rabbi Yonason Eybeschütz. And Eybeschütz responded. So it was like, they say, I heard somebody say once that Rabbi Yaakov Emden was the first blogger. So, and this went on for years, and everybody got involved. Even the Vilna Gaon went involved as a very young man in trying to sort out this machlokas. In the end, it only became resolved when Yonason Eybeschütz died. I don't want to take more time today. Tomorrow I'm going to continue on this topic and explain what this has to do with Chassidus.